Welcome back to the Rest of Us podcast from Watching Now on CouchSoup. We're taking you through each episode of The Last of Us Season 2 every single week until there's none left, and there's only like two left after this one. God,
Almost
that's
done,
gone
guys.
quickly, hasn't it? And then we have to wait till
Yeah.
like 2026.
I
Gee,
know. At
maybe
least they've already been greenlit
2027.
for season three, so
Hmm.
we
Yeah.
don't
That's
have to
true.
wait for that.
You may notice that I am not a Hungarian woman. So I'm in for Lily
Couldn't
this
tell.
week. Lily is got busy. I'm Ian. I'm be your host today. But as always, we've got Nick
Hey, hey.
and On.
Hi.
So we got most of the crew. Got most of the crew back here.
Two out
I'm
of
still
three.
here. I'll do my best to be not as salty. Well, like you used to be salty, Lily. Now it's not so salty, Lily. I'll do my best.
Yeah. Yeah.
You got to be the positive one this time.
That was my job. Well, to be fair, it still kind of is. There's just little things that I got salty on. No big deal.
Are we salty again this week? We should probably find
No.
out.
Well, okay, yeah, we'll find out. I did not answer you. I don't know.
Let's move on to the non-spoiler thought, shall we? Just like go straight into it. Go straight into it.
Yes. So this episode I found very well paced. The story was fantastic. There were some points that I got such high anxiety that when something happened, I started crying because I needed that release. So I was really impressed with this episode. Pretty much in all, there were of course a couple of things that I was not like the biggest fan of, but honestly, I really loved this episode. It was really well done, really well acted. I was impressed.
Yeah, very much the same sentiment. I don't want to say pleasantly surprised, but I was happy with this week's episode. I feel like it kind of brought the intensity and the action that we wanted to see. Something we talked about in the first season that wasn't that much action, and they certainly turned it up this season. And this episode was one of those examples where there was a lot of action, and it felt well earned, and it felt like it was placed really well. The big sort of I don't want to say twist, but the big moments at the end of the episode felt really good as well. So I was very happy with this week. A little things here and there, but yeah, very solid episode this week.
I really
Hated it.
liked it this week.
Okay.
I really liked it. And to be fair, I was more on the side of Lily last season. I didn't like the lack of infected anywhere. I thought there was literally no danger of anyone getting caught. So why did they need the fucking
Hmm.
antidote anyway, the vaccine? This season has not been like that. And again, this episode has it's it all makes sense to me. The changes that they've made to people's motivations um and how they've put together this story enough from the games. I've really enjoyed this week, especially. Okay, so everyone's gonna burst with spoilers if we don't get into the spoilers section. So we probably should go into the spoilers section.
Yes.
Okay.
Spoilers.
Spoilers. Spoilers.
I know you guys all usually do character by character, but can we start with the one thing that I really want to start with?
Yeah, let's go
Go
for
for it.
it.
Let's do it.
We have spores.
Ah!
Yay!
Oh my gosh. It was so good. So good. That intro for the spores. Like the fact that they almost like made it a character was
Mm.
such a good choice.
I was so kind of with that opening scene. So that opening scene that happens before the beginning credits, I hated. Like initially when I was watching the episode, I hated it because I was like, we're gonna have like this little hint at it, and then it's gonna be a letdown moment kind of thing. I was like, I don't know where they're going with this, and it was kind of awkward. But when they talked about like B2, I was like, hang on. And what I loved is that there's little tiny little hints at the Rat King because they
Yep.
even mentioned rats
Yes.
at one point, like rats are going down there, and they mentioned B2, which is obviously like the basement, the second basement level or whatever, which is where you find the Rat King in the game. So there's little hints at it, and I'm like, I don't think we'll get it this season,
No.
but they've
No, no, no.
definitely set it up for next season.
Yes.
And it just was. I didn't like at the beginning where they were hinting at it and stuff. I thought there's no ways we're going to see spores or anything crazy this episode. And then when Ellie gets down to B2 and you start seeing the spores and the infected, it didn't even look like infected people. It looked like just normal people, like encased in like the spores and stuff in the walls. And like to see Nora's reaction to it and stuff was like chilling. Oh, I loved it. Spores are one of my favorite things from the game. I hate that we didn't get it in season one, but I love the introduction here. And it kind of made sense because it was almost like the infected are evolving in a way, which is kind of
Hmm.
a theme that they're doing with like the stalkers as well. So I was a big fan towards the end. Like when you see the spores, I was like, okay, now I really like that opening scene. So
Yeah.
it's a great introduction.
So with the I talked about this actually in our season one about Tess's like originally written background. And I'll quote it again for anyone who didn't happen to listen to it. Tess had a kid. She had a husband. She had a son. They were infected. She had to kill them. She killed her husband, but she could not kill her son. She couldn't do it. She locked him in the basement, where theoretically he's still a clicker. So they basically took the inspiration for Tess's original background and gave it to Elise,
Mm.
which I thought was
Interesting.
heartbreaking. It was horrifyingly sad. And the acting in that opening scene where she's just like struggling to get through the story, and we can tell just by specifically naming Leon that this kid or person is important. I was like, this is either going to be like best friend or maybe like a husband, somebody. And then like the lady leaves and says, I'm so sorry about your son. And I was like, oh no. So upsetting. It's so sad. And we got to see the son embedded in
Mm.
the
I
wall
know.
later with L Park written on his shirt.
And
Ugh.
he didn't even really look infected. He looked like he was just kind of trapped. That's what like really was haunting
So,
about
All
that
they
scene as
did was
well.
like encase his body so then they can utilize his lungs to
yeah.
pump out the
Mm.
spores.
And
That's all they did to him.
this is why I loved this version of spores in this world that they've created because they've made it a different type of infected, haven't they? That
Mm.
that one that spends so much time down in like damp places that they come one with the fungus and then starts breathing out the spores and making it like grounded in that sort of science. It's a different type of infected that produces spores rather than they're just being around. They're coming from all of the fungus.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that was a good plan so that they can selectively use the spores in certain areas rather than having the spores everywhere where the infected is.
I agree. I think it was a great
Yeah, that's a
choice.
nice touch.
Yeah,
Mm.
it was worth waiting for the spoilers for the spores. Now I'm not angry about it. I am very happy with their choices.
All right, let's do Dina then.
Dina was surprisingly sort of, I don't know, I kind of want to say she was quiet this episode, but I feel like she kind of did have some meaningful moments. I mean, there's obviously the big moment which happens towards the end, which I'll get to, but it kind of felt like, I mean, it's not a bad thing, it's not a criticism, but it kind of feels like her, I don't want to call it like an inciting incident, but her big thing, the fact that she's pregnant, is kind of out in the open already. So it's kind of like the mystery and the kind of what are we going to get from the from this character for the rest of the story is kind of already out there. Um, so I don't really feel like we're gonna get anything more from Dina until she starts to kind of we start seeing the effects of like the fact she's pregnant and trying to survive this thing. And that's where I like the moment at the end, which is where she gets shot in the leg by an arrow.
Took an
Um,
arrow to the knee.
she took an arrow to the knee.
Classic.
I like that moment because that was like, okay, this is a weakened character by the fact that she's pregnant. How do we make her life even harder? Which is something they do pretty well in the game. And what they did here was basically say she's now living for two, essentially, and she's now going to be living or trying to survive with this injury. And I loved that we didn't actually get to see anything more. We saw her get shot in the leg or in the knee, and then Jesse carries her away, and that's all we see. So we don't even know if she's alive. Obviously, she's
He's
alive, but
alive. Cool.
you have that intensity of like, is she okay? And that is really exciting. But otherwise, from Dina, like, there wasn't really too much. I mean, she did talk about the first time she killed someone, which was a pretty cool scene. And I
Yeah.
think that they're really trying to hammer down that Dina wants this revenge for Joel's death just as much as Ellie does, which is a weird, weird choice to me. Because, it always felt like Dina was being dragged along in the game, and now in the show, it feels like Dina's just as involved in it, which I don't know. I don't know if I really like it. I don't hate it, but I don't know what you guys feel about that.
My take here is that they changed her motivation so much. They made her Joel's daughter you know,
Hmm.
she has to be as angry or just a little bit about to be angry as much as Ellie. And changing the arrow shot from to Ellie to Dina is a good excuse to sideline her because there's no way she would have sidelined herself. I mean,
Yeah.
she gave Ellie the choice. Ellie did not choose to sideline her. Now she's sidelined because she's too
Mhm.
injured to go on day three.
And
Hmm.
imagine if she did go or didn't get injured and went with Ellie, encounters the spores, she'd be dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was a good way to sideline her. Um, it's kind of funny because I actually had like the opposite thought at the beginning, where I was like, Dina feels like the main character this episode. I felt like
Okay.
which I wasn't like mad at. I just the first impression was like, I think she's kind of the main character this episode. This must be when they sideline her because we're getting as much as we can out of her to kind of show same as in the game. Like Dina's the one who's kind of more strategically smart and
Hmm.
Yeah.
figured things out, whereas Ellie's irrational and just runs and goes for it. And we get a little bit of that interaction between them where she's like, if we have the choice, knife or run, now repeat after me, which is another indicator of we're going to miss Dina a lot because things are going to get real shitty
Messy.
for Ellie
Hmm.
real quick.
Well,
I
it
love
seems like Ellie's off her leash when she's not around Dina.
I loved as well just on that where Dina's like, no, we run before we shoot, like shooting is a last resort. And when they encounter those stalkers, she's like, let's split up. And then as soon as any runs away, she's like, bang, bang, bang.
I'm so great. Which made sense. And oh gosh, that was fantastic. I love Dina in the show. I love her like in the game too. Just I just love her. She's so
She's a great
sassy and
character.
so great. Like I can't do this stuff because I'm dumb. Well, I wouldn't call you that. Like, come on. They're so cute. I love them.
I mean, it's probably a good thing she's sidelined because like you said, she was in danger of becoming the main character because she was so likable.
Totally.
Made her a little too likable,
Hmm. How
which is
dare
great.
they?
Actually, I love that. It's great when you can make a character likable. The sequence too about Dina talking about who her first kill was also a slight change from the game because uh like technically this is an Easter egg, but it's along the lines of the story, so I'll just say it.
Just go for it.
Um is in the game her background, her sister ends up surviving too and raises Dina for a while, but in the show, Dina would like sees them both get killed and then has to make her way to wherever she went, however she did to get to Jackson. And I kind of like that change for her because like you guys had said too, it was about like almost like equaling out on the like I understand the revenge because I would hunt them down forever. And I like that equal understanding. I think that fit the
Mm.
characters really well to line up the motivation.
Man, Isabel Merced is making a play for that Emmy, man. Like she's got to. That's
Oh,
two episodes in a row where like
yeah.
showing different things, like the anger in this episode and the lovingness in the previous and the
Yeah.
scares. She was so scared. Uh,
So good. She needs
It's
more.
something I thought was quite funny. I watched I think we talked about this earlier in the podcast in one of the first episodes, but I watched Alien Romulus this weekend,
mhm.
and I didn't know
Oh.
that Isabella Merced was in it, and she's also
Oh,
pregnant in that.
no
So
way.
I was like, this girl's is not having a good time with being pregnant in movies.
Oh, kind of like Pedro Pascal getting stuck with being a father figure that adopts some sort of child somewhere.
and gets killed off in terrible ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, poor
Ugh.
guy.
Let's go Jesse then, because Jesse's turned up.
Oh my gosh. Okay,
Jesse.
I'm gonna barrel through because I'm gonna start without
Okay,
even asking
go for
Do
it.
it.
because in the non-spoiler when I was like I was feeling so much anxiety, that whole sequence, I don't I it must have been like my lack of sleep and just like the excitement, but I was so anxious that whole time. Jesse shows up and it looks like the shadow of Joel for a bit, and it shows Jesse, and I burst into tears, like bawling my eyes out because I was feeling such relief because I couldn't think. I was like, how are they going to get out of this? I've played the game. I know how things work, but this is slightly different. And he just comes in and saves the day. And I'm just sitting there just crying my eyes out because I'm so happy. I had been so scared. At least all of us who played the game were so scared that they were going to sideline Tommy. They were going to sideline Jesse and just not really do anything with them. I was like, there's no way they can't. But now we finally get the confirmation. Tommy is out there somewhere. They
Hmm.
just switched it up so they go after instead of before, which fine, whatever, I don't care. I'm just happy that they're there. And Jesse
Yes.
getting so pissed off, like Ellie, I don't want to talk to you right now. We're going home. And wait, Ellie's just gonna be like, yeah, sure we are. Mm-hmm. Made it
Sure.
all this way. I don't think so.
So
Oh,
something that you pointed out there was like before you know it's Jesse, it's kind of this shadow, and you think kind of it kind of looks like Joel.
yeah.
I in immediately I thought about this that I thought maybe Ellie's gonna look up and she's gonna see Joel, like it's gonna be Pedro Pascal. She's gonna see
Oh.
Joel and then kind of like blink or something, and then it's gonna be Jesse. I
Oh,
thought they were going to do something like that. It
yeah.
wouldn't have really made much sense, but I was kind of hoping in the moment, I was kind of hoping they would do it and kind of like thinking, oh, they're going to do this because I thought maybe that would have been a nod to I think it's the first trailer for like the first full trailer for the second
Ooh.
game. There's a scene, the scene in the game where Jesse arrives. In the trailer, they use a little bit of bait and switch or
They lied.
mirror magic or
They lied,
whatever. They
Nick. They
lied to us
lied.
directly. They lied to us directly, and basically placed Joel in that scene instead of Jesse. So it's kind of like Marvel do it all the time with their trailers and stuff. But I thought they were going to do something like that in this episode as a nod to that. It was just a thought I had at the time. It wouldn't have really made much
Interesting.
sense, but I
I
thought it
don't
would
know.
have been a cool nod to be like, "Hey, we did this to you once before."
Oh.
I mean, I don't know, because like she was getting bit to fuck right at that point. They were all over it. There was
Yeah.
absolutely she could have been hallucinating out of pain.
Yeah.
Could have happened. You know,
Speaking of that, I had the immediate thought because when we all play the game, we die a shit ton. And I feel like Ellie constantly getting like attacked, then piled on just feels like we're dying with her every single time. I love and I hate that.
Hmm.
Maybe that's why she got bit in the first episode was to say that like you do actually die, but you're still alive.
But you're
I'm
fine.
still trying to figure out why they made her get bit.
I don't know. Stalkers, man. I'll let you finish with your thought because you didn't have one. I'm just
No,
so excited.
yeah, it's all good. Like I like Jesse's there. Like Jesse and Tommy are in Seattle. Tommy's probably going shooting Manny's face off right at this
Oh,
moment in
same.
time.
Yeah, boy.
Doing the
Spoilers,
torture
so.
scene. Oh,
But yeah, I enjoyed hero Jesse coming in. Um, it adds to his likability factor. It like adds to his hero complex. It's going to be much more painful later when something happens. Um,
it's actually my
mhm.
one of my favorite parts of the game. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I'm
Shocking
sure
moment, yeah.
because you're a sadist.
A little maybe.
I like that because again motivations have moved around that he's said that they're there to bring them home and not to help them. Um, whether that is all truth in Tommy's case is well, and maybe I'm here. Maybe I should just I'm here.
Might
Just
as
do it.
well.
But I do think that Tommy's motivation has changed so much since of the game because he wasn't there at the time and he was such a pivotal point. part of the siege of Jackson, that he was in the right place in where he needed to be when Joel was dead. So I don't think that his overriding emotion is go and kill everybody. It's just
Mhm.
save the rest of his family.
Yeah.
And they would still technically have to keep going after Ellie,
Yeah.
so they can't turn back yet.
Yeah,
Oh
that is true.
no, I'm so upset.
Hmm. You look
I
it.
wanted to say as well, I want to say as well, I really, really enjoyed that scene where Jesse arrived because obviously it's frantic at the beginning with the infected, and then they have to try and escape the WLF. But then they have, which is one of the coolest parts of the whole episode, which is when they go into the forest and the
Oh,
WLF were just like, oh, no, 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 we can't follow them in there. And I knew, obviously, if you played the game, you know exactly what that means. And the introduction of the Seraphites was epic. Just there, which I think is one of the most haunting things. The visuals in the game are stunning in general, but when you are in the forest area like that during the game, and the Seraphites have those flame torches out, it just looks incredible and it's really cool. It aesthetically is so pleasing. And then obviously we get the moment where we get to see them
oh, the
disembowel, I think is the
ritual
word.
sacrifice, basically
With it,
cleansing.
yeah. And I thought that they were gonna
Woo.
like, off screen kind of do it, but they really like showed us everything
They
and
went for it.
showed how brutal the Seraphites are. And it was cool to kind of see, okay, we've seen how brutal and bloody the WLF are. Now we've seen a little bit of how gruesome the Seraphites are, which again is I think what I said before was it kind of it shows that there's two sides to this war. It's not that any of them are the victims. They both kind of had this power struggle, and they're setting up the two factions really really well.
Yeah.
And obviously we have a big moment towards the end of the game, which is only day 3 for Abby, which so this is I'm sure only going to be like end of season 3. But there's like a big sort of war that happens, and they're building up to that a lot. So I'm very excited to see what they're doing with these two factions and explaining more about them.
Yeah.
I'm definitely on
The
board with it a lot more now.
right? And it was perfect foreshadowing at the episode 2 where Tommy says, "Oh, nope, we don't go into the forest. That's dangerous." Yeah, it sure as hell is.
Hmm.
Tell me
Those
about it.
whistles can give you
Oh,
nightmares.
so great.
Each of them have their own specific meaning and what they do, and it just oh, I was just sitting there like with my I was just like scared.
I'm more
Scared.
appreciative of the scene with that just as they were entering Seattle, where the little girl Seraphite and
Yes.
the father Seraphite is explaining that that's a language. It doesn't mean nothing. So when
Uh-huh.
they're just whistling their head off in this scene, that everyone knows that they're communicating with each other, not just doing a little whistle.
Yeah. And I love too that it almost like led into the next sequence where like sneaking is a big factor in the game. You don't have to sneak, but there are parts where you really do need to. And it gave such a good impression of how it feels in the game to just be on the ground, listening, waiting, watching, which led into the WLF with Ellie and you sneaking through the grass, the dog notices you. So does the
Mm.
guy, because that happens in the game too, where they just come around through that exact tall grass. I felt like I was playing the game again.
Hmm.
It was so good. I love when they bring in like the mechanics from the game and show it accurately.
So that brings us to entering the hospital for Ellie because that I think that was a WLF dog, wasn't it? So a little anecdote. I was on Tuesday night. I was at the cinema. I was watching Sinners. It was great, but I got a message as I was going in from a friend saying, I'm up to day 2 on Ellie in The Last of Us 2. Should I keep playing or watch the episode? And I was in the cinema, so I didn't text back. When it came out, there was a string of text messages saying, I, I
Oh
shouldn't have
no.
watched the episode. I shouldn't have watched the episode.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh no. Poor thing.
So
Sad.
Ellie then, sorry.
Oh, Ellie.
Mm.
Ooh. Okay.
That enough rage for you guys?
So I'll start and immediately touch on that.
Hmm.
So I've been the salty one this season with regards to Ellie and her anger and rage and things
Me
like that. Because
too.
that is, as I've always said, that it's a core theme of this story. So not even talking about the game, it's a core theme of the story is rage, like vengeance and anger and rage and a cycle of
Mhm.
violence. And we Lily made some good points. I think Owen made a few points as well about how the show is treating it differently in the sense of not just showing that rage out front, like up front, like straight away,
Which
and they're
I
kind of
don't necessarily
slow
agree
burning
with, but
it.
I understand it because I wanted that rage.
It's exactly how I feel. The thing is, you don't need to show that rage like Ellie's smashing things all the time, but she just doesn't seem angry. And at the beginning of this episode, I was so ready to be the salty one again and be like, I
Hmm.
fucking hate it because she's joking around. She's playing around at the beginning of the episode. I was like, does anything from the last four episodes mean anything to you right now, Ellie? She's joking around like she's on some fun road trip with her
Hmm.
girlfriend. Like it just, to me, I was like, why are you making jokes? Why are you having fun right now? Like
Right,
your
like it's
father was
okay to
killed.
do that, but they were doing it a little more consistently where I was like, okay, we're
It
losing it.
was, that's exactly it. I was like, nah, I didn't feel the heartache. I didn't feel the pain. And then she had a moment where I was like, ooh, okay, turning point. And I liked it. It's when she goes into the theater, she goes onto the stage and she picks up the guitar and
Oh,
like does a little quick little tune. And then she plays
quick
the
little
song.
tune. That's that. You're
Well,
just gonna leave it a
she
quick
tunes
little
it.
tune.
No. I mean, she
Oh,
tunes the
okay.
guitar, is what I'm
I
saying.
thought you were talking about the song, and I was like, I'm gonna
No,
kill
not the
you.
song. She tunes the
Sorry.
guitar
Yeah.
quickly. But then she plays I think the song is called If I Were Ever to Leave You, or I can't remember what the
Ever
song's
to
called,
lose you,
but
isn't it?
that's
Something
it,
Pearl
yeah.
Jam.
And that is the big song from the game. It's really meaningful, and we're gonna find out later if you haven't played the games. And she literally can't even get past the first line, and she has to stop and put the guitar down. So if you haven't played the game, you don't know what that song's about, just wait for it. I'm not even gonna spoil what that is. It just, I was like, okay, I feel the heartache right now. I feel what, like she's angry, she's sad. I feel this now. And she comes back up to talk to Dina and is a completely different person. She's quieter, more
Mm.
stoic.
Voice
And we start
lowers.
seeing it kind of, and this is the anger that I wanted to see. She didn't have to rage and break things, but you felt it the rest of the episode. She was like, okay, now I remember why I'm in Seattle right now, and you could see that she was a bit quieter and a bit more like forceful about doing things. Um, and then we see the culmination of her anger, and we see the anger come out for the first time when she's in the hospital and just beating the shit out of Nora. And I hope that's not the end of that scene. I hope we get to see a little bit more of it because I wanted to kind of, but I think I'd be okay with it because in the game as well, you don't really see Ellie give a final blow. It kind
Mm-mm.
of cuts out in the same sort of way, but at least we got to see some of that. It came out for the first time, and when she had that chase scene, which is almost carbon copy from the game as well,
Yeah.
there's that chase scene, and they go down the elevator shaft, and it's great. But while she's running off to Nora, she's like, get the fuck back here. She's like, I want to fucking kill you. And it just, I was like, there it is. That's the rage I've been wanting to see. And I understand that they wanted to do it in the shows like a slow burn to build up to it, but I wanted it to kind of start at least slowly in some way. But we finally are starting to see that anger and that violence, and I fucking loved it at the end.
Yeah. You can't have a slow burn when you only have 7 episodes. Like you can, but it
Exactly.
cannot be that slow of a burn. I do want to mention too with Ellie, there was a shot when they're crossing to get to the gate, to get to that mysterious building. I think that's where the part is. But the light reflects in Ellie's eyes and it
Mm.
is like bright yellow. And that was cinematically gorgeous. And I could see, like, I could feel terror looking at that. I was almost like, is there something behind me? Like that kind of
Mm.
fear. And that was a really smart cinematography choice. I feel exactly the same way that you do, Nick. I felt relief when we finally got that after the singing and struggling because that song means a lot to everybody. And finally getting that change, which we could have easily had a couple of those little signs sprinkled out a little bit more and it would have would have satisfied me,
Mm.
but I was finally happy that it happened. And getting to with Nora and talking to Ellie and almost feeling because in the first episode I kept talking about how everybody kind of feels like almost like not happy to be there and like they've been dragged along, but the way that Nora talked at first, I was feeling like, okay, I think I was right. And then she quickly turns into like basically that bitch got what he deserved. And I was like, oh, never
Yeah.
mind.
Ooh.
Never mind. Yeah, great idea. Do that to somebody who's got a gun pointed at you
Yeah.
because Ellie does not care. She's like, at least you'll be dead. And it was so great having that chase sequence. I was worried that they weren't going to be able to get the same fear and chase response that they did in the game, but they did it. They did it very well, and I felt satisfied with that scene and getting down into the basement. Oh, being able to allow Ellie when you're in the game to be surrounded by uh spores and other things and everybody has their masks on and you can let Ellie just freak the hell out of everybody when she's walking around killing all of them without a mask on. That just adds another extra layer of fear. And we see that with Nora when Nora's like, you've killed us both. I was like, have I? And she's not
Mhm.
coughing. She's not doing anything. And Nora realizes you're the immune girl and tells the story basically of who Joel is. And Ellie says, I know. Just looking at like, there's two things to that. One, with Ellie leading up to that point with finally turning the red lights on, like from the game. Ooh, that was great because
Mhm.
it signified to us even more blood-filled rage. And watching Bella do what they do best with their acting is doing that switching and seeing the almost deadness behind their eyes and letting go and letting their feelings push out into the rage. It paralleled so perfectly with episode 2, the way that Ellie looks back for a weapon. He said, I'm not going to shoot you. I'm going to torture you instead. Looks for a weapon, same as Abby did. Looks at the golf club, picks up the pole that is kind of curved like a golf club
Mhm.
and continues to hurt Nora in the same way that Ellie did, starting with the knees
Mhm.
and working up, was a great parallel. I forget who Nora's actor is. I forget her name.
Patty Gabrielle.
Yes, oh my gosh, every single person deserves an Emmy in my eyes at this moment because being able to act like that and still coughing and dying, be able to get those words out and still acting with both your body and your eyes, that seemed like such a difficult feat. And she accomplished it so, so well. And it paralleled perfectly with the game. I was very, very happy.
I do have one thing I wanted to talk about big time in the scene as well,
Hmm.
is the moment where Nora says, "You're the immune girl. Joel killed all these people, killed Abby's father, and blah blah blah." And and Ellie
Oh, yeah.
says, "I know." From the perspective, so there's a question now. From the perspective of people who haven't played the games and are just watching the TV show, do we
Mhm.
believe Ellie when she says that she knows?
Yes,
I
because they're going to
believe
show it
so.
next week.
But that's they haven't showed it yet.
But for,
So
yeah,
do you think in that moment she's just playing it off like I know, like whatever, or do you
when,
think that she like as an audience member, do you
mhm.
think that audiences are going to be like, wait, no, she's playing that off. She doesn't know because Joel never told her.
I actually looked into that because I was curious. Because I like doing the like gamer perspective versus casual show watchers. It was kind of split 50-50 again. Where people are like, okay, so maybe like they did have that conversation on the porch and that's when she finds out, or she found out because she just basically put the pieces together, or she's faking it.
Hmm.
So there wasn't like a full, like, resounding thought as to which it could be, but the way that they are putting the pieces together, I was impressed because it's probably it's a little bit of both and not like faking saying I know. But people did think that she would potentially be lying about it.
I don't think so. I guess like they set up this rift between them,
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
and Ellie for the first two episodes hated Joel
Yeah.
until after the dance. Um, so they set up the rift knowing that something caused that rift and that wasn't explained. So I think personally, they set up that pretty well to
Right.
her knowing already. But it was a nice little reveal because it was
It
like,
really was.
oh, she knew, did she? Okay.
It came out so well because it wasn't like this big moment of like like it was just kind of like I love these kinds of shock moments where you kind of just like in a line of dialogue you just reveal something massive, and it's kind of like in the scene in the context of the scene it doesn't make a lot, it doesn't make a lot of difference, but you're like, ooh, there's so much more to explore right now because we now know that. And I
Yeah.
think it's all but confirmed also with the very last shot or scene of the episode where we see Joel come through the door and wake Ellie up.
Oh,
That's obviously a flashback. So I think all but confirmed that next week we're gonna have the flashback at the museum and the flashback at I think they're at a
with
university
Eugene.
where Ellie, oh, what, she goes back to Salt Lake City and finds out the truth about what happened
I
in
I
Salt
don't
Lake
know if
City.
it's going to happen like that. I don't think she's going to travel all the way to Salt Lake City.
I don't think
That
it'll be the
doesn't
same.
seem
Also,
right.
not
I
really
think
feasible.
that come from Eugene. I think they're going to see the Eugene death as well
Tells
in this
her.
next episode. Yeah,
Yeah, Eugene
they
might tell
announced
Ellie.
casting for Eugene ages ago for Joe
Hmm.
Pantoliano, so they've got to use him at some point in this season.
Do you
Hmm.
think then that the therapist, I forget her name, but the therapist,
Gail.
Gail, do you think she's upset with Joel because Joel tells her that he was infected and Joel
Mm.
killed Eugene to maybe try and stop him revealing the truth to Ellie?
I think it could go either way because I wish that they went with your spore idea, but the more
Mm,
that things keep going, the more I'm like I'm pissed that
it's
it's
not
not
gonna
happening.
happen.
Because that's such a brilliant idea. But my thought process is two ways. Um, well, I guess it's kind of one because I think that you are right because I think because Eugene has ties with Firefly.
Hmm.
Used to be within government like those guys. Um and I think he found out about what happened in Salt Lake, maybe from one of the nurses, somebody somewhere, told him because of his connections. And he either reveals it to Ellie or tells Joel, hey, I know what you did. And I think Joel is going to find a way and like basically use he's infected as an excuse to kill
Yes.
him,
That's what
to
I'm thinking
not
as well.
reveal it because we already know that Joel will do anything to keep that a secret to just the people that need to know. I think that's what's going to happen is he's going to kill Eugene to hide the secret but make it seem like he was infected.
Interesting.
Going back to Ellie really quickly, I'm not with you guys. I think that they set her up to be a liar for this for this whole series. So like the little flashes of anger has been okay with me. And I know it's a personal preference thing, but I feel like I've seen enough of the slow build to the Nora in this season personally. And again, it's a personal preference thing.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think the gamer community is a little split on that too, like kind of how we are, especially because there is the difference between like the show adaptation versus the game and kind of like splitting the two because I know we all have like our preferences for how we would like it to go.
Yeah.
And some of us aren't getting that and we're kind of mad about it, but um I can see the way that it makes sense for the show, especially for non-gamer players because showing and reflecting especially grief and sadness more than they did in the game um, makes sense to be able to help you connect with Ellie a little bit more and allow that emotion to kind of like carry you with her.
Anything else before we let on go with wild with her Easter eggs?
The with Joel coming in saying, "Hey kiddo," I had
Mm.
already been crying before and I just started crying again because like just hearing him say that and having it be the perfect way to connect this episode to the next, I'm like I'm going to cry a lot next week. A lot.
I don't doubt it.
And Ellie was so happy as well.
So
Yeah.
happy. Hi. Ugh. It's fine.
On, go with your Easter eggs.
Okay, there's a couple of times where we see Naughty Dog yellow. There were a couple little bits throughout the episode, but my favorite was the gate that Dina basically locks herself into has Naughty Dog yellow on it, which of course is just fantastic, a way to guide it. And we have the WLF dog.
Mm.
Her name is Bonnie,
Aw.
a real sweetheart. I
Wait,
found that
wait.
out
What? How do you know the exact name of that dog?
because if you do the CC English captions, it says like Bonnie barks,
Are
Bonnie
you kidding me?
growls.
Jesus, okay, fine.
That's
Carry
why I
on.
That is
watched them with the
attention to
CC on
detail.
so that I could catch little things.
Fine, fine.
Bonnie is
Just
a
on just on
sweetheart.
going on IMDb, she's like, where is that damn dog? What is its name?
I have to find the dog's name. I have done that before. I'm not even gonna lie. Yeah, one of the infected, down below that is puffing out the spores. We see that is El Park, which is Elise's son. We kind of talked about that already. Same with Tess's background. We have uh, a cute little thing. So we have the feel her love uh, thing
Mm.
on the wall and then the like feel this bitch
Mhm.
that mural itself is taken directly from the game shot for shot. We also have a restaurant in the background called Noodle Bowl, which is also directly from the game. I love when they bring in like the restaurants and other things in.
That whole
um
that whole street that they're on, with like the little convenience stores and stuff, that
yeah.
like there's a couple of shots where I'm like, am I looking at the game? Like they've done the backgrounds and
Yes.
the scenery so well. There's one shot that very clearly looks like it's green screened, but I
Yeah,
don't
when
hate
they're
it because
walking
it just
down the
looks
street.
Mhm.
exactly, and I don't hate it because it literally looks like it's concept art or an
Yeah,
actual render from the game that they're green screened in, and it feels a lot more immersive. Like it feels kind of obvious that it's a green screen,
but
but at
I
the
wasn't
same
mad
time, I
about
kind
it.
of appreciate it because it feels a lot more like it's a part of the game. So I
Yeah,
love that, and just that street, it was like
it
this is
felt so
like one of the
good.
areas in the game.
I love when like it just elicits those feelings of like familiarity. Kind of like last, but there weren't too many Easter eggs specifically because there were so many like timeline and other changes from the show. There was only just like a couple small things. But I love that the red light turning on kind of like immediate symbolization that something bad is about to happen. It does the same thing in the game, same thing here, elicits that, hey, by the way, something bad is going down. And we did talk about before that with them going down the levels,
Mhm.
that there's not even rats. Gosh, I'm so excited that we need that Rat King. We need it so bad. That's one of the most horrifying things that has
I
ever happened in a game.
so I really want it right. I want the
Right?
Rat King. The Rat King. What did Nolan call him? Like Joe or something? I can't remember.
I don't know.
Frank, Kevin. It was Kevin.
Kevin.
Like, I really want Kevin. I'm worried at what it's gonna look like in a TV show.
I I think what they're gonna have to do, like obviously it's gonna they're doing really well doing things very practically. I think they're gonna do as many things as they can to take up space
Hmm.
with practical effects, but a majority of the surrounding is gonna be CG. And I think what they're gonna do is just from like a production standpoint is use lighting very strategically so that it's
Mm.
not like uh goofy. because it definitely can be when you merge a bunch of
Very much
like
so.
body parts and creatures together. It can look very silly. So I think that they're going to utilize um it's going to sound really weird. They're going to utilize moisture and
Mm,
slime as a reflection of certain parts of the Rat King's body, and lighting and flashing lights to make it seem even scarier than it is, because in the game we see it in almost like full light, and still that's horrifying, but they're going to make it
Yeah.
even more so with just a
yeah.
little bit of changes here and there.
So a quick, like, real quick question on the Rat King before we move on from it. Do you think there's any chance that we're going to see it in this season?
No.
I wish, but I don't think so.
Because I'm thinking that they might do something in the last episode where
Like a
they
growl or
tease
something
it.
somewhere.
They it's like a growl. We get a little flash, a little glimpse of it, and everyone's gonna be like, "What the hell is that thing?" Come back for season 3 and you'll find out.
I, I
That's actually that would be a
I got
great
thought
idea.
about it, but yeah,
I think that would be
maybe it's just
great.
because the spores make sense that this is, and the way they did spores in the episode makes sense that they are developing into something. So to maybe hint at the Rat King would
Hmm.
be cool, and then to bring it in full force in season 3, the way they do in the game is, oh, it would be so good.
mean, I get
But
it, and
very likely.
I would quite enjoy a little tease, but they're gonna move away from the hospital. Like,
Mm.
I don't think they're gonna show Ellie's exit because that'd be a really hard thing to do when they've locked down the hospital. But
That was my next thought, was how is Ellie gonna get out when they've talked so much about sealing everything shut?
100%.
Yeah.
So I think they're gonna do some TV, and she got out magic.
Maybe just like a little bit of like her crawling under the building again, like not actually showing her like actually getting out, but just like the actual exit part. Probably. I do think that having like a growl or something like before she leaves would be an excellent way to signify something's down there. So then when we get to Abby, we can hear that growl again. That's like, oh, that's right.
Hmm,
Something is down there.
Because
I don't
there
know.
there is a moment in the game where I think it's where when
I think
Ellie
it's,
is
yeah.
having a moment with Nora, you actually do hear the Rat King roar. And that's because at the same time, chronologically, Abby is fighting the Rat King at that time because Abby is actually at the hospital. They're nearby.
That's true.
Um, so maybe they'll do something like that. Maybe they'll show Ellie kind of escaping, and then she'll be like, "What the hell was that sound? Oh, I don't have time. I gotta run."
That's
And
such a
then we'll
good
be like,
point.
"Ooh, there's
I
something
don't think we
there."
got time personally, but yeah, I
It's just a
appreciate it.
little sound, all they have to do. I know everything's done and filmed and you can't get anything in the episodes yet, but
I,
honestly,
A little
because
soundbite.
that's a great point.
I just don't see them not getting to the end of day three with Ellie. I just don't see
Mm-hmm.
it. I because there's so much to do in that final non-bottle episode that we're gonna get. I
Yeah.
just can't see it.
That, and with like season 3 and onward, because it's clearly gonna go, it actually may not clearly go into a season 4, but it just might. Um though, because there is so much to get through, but I don't think having just like Abby's story alone is going to carry a season 3. So it's probably why they won't finish the rest of the day with Ellie until, like they'll do a little bit obviously in the finale because we need like a cliffhanger to go off of. But I think they're going to do a little bit more of
Mm.
Ellie sprinkled throughout, or at least the beginning of season 3, to kind of hold that in. Because I'm not sure if Abby's story can hold, not like hold attention, but I don't think viewers are attached to Abby yet to be able to be okay with a full season of Abby, which is dumb
Yeah,
because
that's
Abby's story's sick.
it is. It is. That's a great story. I really enjoyed her part of the game. And that's what I was going to bring up. Maybe it's kind of something we can talk about in more detail next week
Mm-hmm.
before the final episode. But I was going to say that I think that this season is going to end with the end of Ellie's day 3.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't want to spoil what happens at the end of the day 3, but there's the moment where Abby and Ellie confront each other for the first time. I think that moment is going to be the end of the season.
I do
And
think
there's
that
some
you are
shocking
right.
things that happens. I think that's going to be it. And the first half of season 3 is going to be Abby's story right up to uh, that ending, and then Santa Monica is going to be the second half,
Which
or the last
honestly,
couple of episodes of season three.
I really hope that that is what they do. Like I know I talked to like about my theory and that what might happen just because of holding audience views.
Mhm.
My hope and desire is exactly that. That's
Yeah.
what I want and that's what I think should happen.
Yeah. And I personally believe that that all will be stuck in the moment of that confrontation for 4 episodes while there's some speeches going around and then some
Hmm.
flashbacks. Um,
Yeah.
but let's see.
So
That's
excited.
another 2 episodes away and 2 years
Yeah.
probably. So we probably should just go ahead and rate this episode now. On, do
Well,
you want to go first
oh,
today?
me? Okay.
Yes.
I've been rating these episodes decently high because I have been very much enjoying them. I'm going to keep along the same train. I think this is a good, like, 8 out of 10. Emotion is a really big and important thing with shows like this, especially taking them from such high emotions from the game and being able to translate it in. I was very happy to see more of what I personally felt from the games in the show. It continued to make me feel like I was part of the game again, which I'm still playing on the side. Um, and I'm really impressed with all of these actors and what they're able to do with these characters and give us those emotions of fear, anxiety, love, and Ellie's little comment of "Oh, you love me." Was actually like
Aw.
genuinely adorable. Like it's almost like I give you this really long plan and someone says blah 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 blah. Don't worry, your pretty little head. And they're like, "Oh, you think I'm pretty?" And it's like, okay, but did you listen to anything else I said? And it was
No.
just so relatable and so cute. And I'm really satisfied with this episode. So yeah, 8 out of 10.
Yeah, I think my rating is going to be the same. I'm also going to give it an 8 out of 10. I think it was a very solid, like something I wanted to say with this rating is I feel like it's a very solid middle of the season episode where it has progressed the plot enough that it's not a waste of an episode, and it's also built the tension of the earlier moments and what could happen later in the season. So it's a nice middle of the season kind of episode, and I really love that we're starting to see a little bit more of the anger and the grief and the emotion of Ellie. I feel like it really was brought out properly in this episode for honestly, I think the first time. So I'm really happy we're finally starting to see that, and the action sequences continue to deliver. The world building of the Seraphites and the WLF is really, really good. I'm finally excited about this show in a way that I haven't been before. So it's a very solid episode, and I'm genuinely excited to see what comes next. I'm happy that I'm back on board in that kind of way.
On the Last of Us train, Nick. Finally. I hope it doesn't get off again because we're gonna slow it down and do a splashback episode next, but never
Oh, it's gonna be
mind.
so sad.
I really like this one. It was not well, it wasn't really not like, you got a bunch of stalkers, fucking good. Jesse
Oh,
comes back, fucking good.
Love it.
Ellie and Dina, pretty good, right?
yeah.
Hmm.
Nora getting
Oh
her
yeah.
face bashed in, great.
Oh,
Spores? What's that other like in this
oh.
episode? Man, come on. Just
The
listed loads of stuff.
ecosystem in the basement was so eerily beautiful.
Yeah. I can't give this less than an 8.5, 9, maybe a 9, maybe a 9. I'm gonna go with 9. It was great. Enjoyed it. Enjoyed my life.
Perfect.
Absolutely. Well, not perfect would be 10, but 9's good.
We'll stick with 9 for
We'll stay with 9.
now.
I'm
Um,
saving my 10 out of 10 for my full rewatch to see if
mhm.
my opinions change.
I think that's it then.
That's it.
That was the end of it's episode 5. 2 episodes left
Only
until the
two.
end of the season. Join us next time on The Rest of Us, where On and Nick and maybe me, maybe Lily will be back next week. If you liked this, then like and subscribe. Become a member of CouchSoup if you can possibly afford it. But if you can't, that's absolutely fine. Okay. Just, like and subscribe and comment and give us reviews and stuff. Other than that, thanks everyone. Endure and
Endure and
survive.
survive.
Endurance
Woo! I
survive.
like how that was the question. The endurance survive?
Endurance survive.
Maybe?
Who
Maybe.
knows?
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye, guys.